Praise the Lord. According to 1 year Bible reading plan day 32, we have Leviticus chapters 14 to 16. Leviticus chapter 14. The Lord gave Moses the following regulations about the ritual purification of those of you cured of a dreaded skin disease. On the day you are to be pronounced clean, you shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall take you outside the camp and examine you. If the disease is healed, the priest shall order that 2 ritually clean birds be brought, along with a piece of cedar wood, a red cord, and a sprig of hyssop. Then the priest shall order that one of the birds be killed over a clay bowl containing fresh spring water. He shall take the other bird and dip it, together with the cedar wood, the red cord, and the hyssop, in the blood of the bird that was killed. He shall sprinkle the blood 7 times on the one of you who is to be purified from your skin disease, and then he shall pronounce you clean. He shall let the live bird fly away over the open fields. You shall wash your clothes, shave off all your hair, and take a bath. You will then be ritually clean. You may enter the camp, but you must live outside your tent for 7 days. On the 7th day, you shall again shave your head, your beard, your eyebrows, and all the rest of the hair on your body. You shall wash your clothes and take a bath, and then you will be ritually clean. On the 8th day, you shall bring 2 male lambs and 1 female lamb, a year old, that are without any defects, 5 pounds of flour mixed with olive oil, and half a pint of olive oil. The priest shall take you and these offerings to the entrance of the tent of the Lord's presence. Then the priest shall take one of the male lambs together with the half pint of oil. He shall offer it to as a repayment offering. He shall present them as a special gift to the Lord for the priest. He shall kill the lamb in the holy place where the animals for the sin offerings and the burnt offerings are killed. He must do this because the repayment offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest and is very holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the lamb and put it on the lobe of the right ear, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot of the one of you to be declared ritually clean. The priest shall take some of the olive oil and pour it in the palm of his own left hand. Dip a finger of his right hand in it, and sprinkle some of it 7 times there in the Lord's presence. He shall take some of the oil that is in the palm of his hand, and some of the blood of the lamb, and put them on the lobe of the right ear, on the right thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot of the one of you to be declared ritually clean. He shall put the rest of the oil that is in the palm of his hand on your head. In this way he shall perform the ritual of purification. Then the priest shall offer the sin offering and perform the ritual of purification. After that, he shall kill the animal for the burnt offering, and offer it with the grain offering on the altar. In this way, the priest shall perform the ritual of purification, and you will be ritually clean. If you are poor and cannot afford any more, you shall bring for your purification only 1 male lamb as your repayment offering, a special gift to the Lord for the priest. You shall bring only 2 pounds of flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering, and half a pint of olive oil. You shall also bring 2 doves or 2 pigeons, 1 for the sin offering and 1 for the burnt offering. On the 8th day of your purification, you shall bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent. The priest shall take the lamb and the olive oil and represent them as a special gift to the Lord for the priest. He shall kill the lamb and take some of the blood and put it on the lobe of your right ear, on the thumb of your right hand, and on the big toe of your right foot. The priest shall pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and with the finger of his right hand sprinkle some of it 7 times there in the Lord's presence. He shall put some of the oil on the same places he put the blood, on the lobe of your right ear, on the thumb of your right hand, and on the big toe of your right foot. The rest of the oil that is in his palm he shall put on your head, and in this way perform the ritual of purification. Then he shall offer one of the doves or pigeons as a sin offering, and the other as the burnt offering with the grain offering. In this way the priest shall perform the ritual of purification. This is the law for those who have a dreaded skin disease, but who cannot afford the normal offerings required for his purification. The Lord gave Moses and Aaron the following regulations about houses affected by spreading mildew. These were to apply after the people of Israel entered the land of Canaan, which the Lord was going to give them as their possession. If any of you find that the Lord has sent mildew on your house, then you must go and tell the priest about it. The priest shall order everything to be moved out of the house before he goes to examine the mildew, otherwise everything in the house will be declared unclean. Then he shall go to the house and examine the mildew. If there are greenish or reddish spots that appear to be eating into the wall, he shall leave the house and lock it up for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall return and examine it again. If the mildew has spread, he shall order that the stones on which the mildew is found be removed and thrown into some unclean place outside the city. After that, he must have all the interior walls scraped and the plaster dumped in an unclean place outside the city. Then other stones are to be used to replace the stones that were removed, and new plaster will be used to cover the walls. If the mildew breaks out again in the house after the stones have been removed and the house has been scraped and plastered, the priest shall go and look. If it has spread, the house is unclean. It must be torn down, and its stones, its wood, and all its plaster must be carried out of the city to an unclean place. Any who enter the house while it is locked up will be unclean until evening. Any who lie down or eat in the house must wash their clothes. If, when the priest comes to look, the mildew has not reappeared after the house has been replastered, he shall pronounce the house ritually clean, because the mildew has been completely removed. To purify the house, he shall take 2 birds, some cedar wood, a red cord, and a sprig of hyssop. He shall kill one of the birds over a clay bowl containing fresh spring water. Then he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the red cord, and the live bird, and shall dip them in the blood of the bird that was killed, and in the fresh water, and he shall sprinkle the house 7 times. In this way he shall purify the house with the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the red cord. Then he shall let the live bird fly away outside the city over the open fields. In this way he shall perform the ritual of purification for the house, and it will be ritually clean. These are the laws about dreaded skin diseases, sores, boils or inflammations, and about mildew in clothes or houses. These laws determine when something is unclean and when it is clean. Leviticus chapter 15. And the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, Say to the children of Israel, If a man has an unclean flow from his flesh, it will make him unclean. If the flow goes on, or if the part is stopped up to keep back the flow, he is still unclean. Every bed on which he has been resting will be unclean, and everything on which he has been seated will be unclean. And anyone touching his bed is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water, and be unclean till evening. And he who has been seated on anything on which the unclean man has been seated is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And if anyone touching the flesh of the unclean man is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And if liquid from the mouth of the unclean man comes unto him who is clean, then he is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And any leather seat on a horse on which the unclean man has been seated will be unclean, and anyone touching anything which was under him will be unclean till the evening. Anyone taking up any of these is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And anyone on whom the unclean man puts his hands without washing them in water is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And any vessel of earth which has been touched by the unclean man will have to be broken, and any vessel of wood washed. And when a man who has a flow from his body is made clean from it, he is to take 7 days to make himself clean, washing his clothes and bathing his body in flowing water. And then he will be clean. And on the 8th day he is to take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord to the door of the tent of meeting, and give them to the priest. And they are to be offered by the priest, one for a sin offering and one for a burnt offering. And the priest will take away his sin before the Lord on account of his flow. And if a man's seed goes out from him, then all his body will have to be bathed in water, and he will be unclean till evening. And any clothing or skin on which the seed comes is to be washed with water and be unclean till evening. And if a man has sex relations with a woman and his seed goes out from him, the 2 of them will have to be bathed in water and will be unclean till evening. And if a woman has a flow of blood from her body, she will have to be kept separate for 7 days, and anyone touching her will be unclean till evening. And everything on which she has been resting while she is kept separate will be unclean, and everything on which she has been seated will be unclean. And anyone touching her bed will have to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. Anyone touching anything on which she has been seated will have to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. Anyone touching anything on the bed or on the thing on which she has been seated will be unclean till evening. And if any man has sex relations with her so that her blood comes on him, he will be unclean for 7 days, and every bed on which he has been resting will be unclean. And if a woman has a flow of blood for a long time, not at the time when she generally has it, or if the flow goes on longer than the normal time, she will be unclean while the flow of blood goes on, as she is at other normal times. Every bed on which she has been resting will be unclean, as at the times when she normally has a flow of blood. And everything on which she has been seated will be unclean in the same way. And anyone touching these things will be unclean, and his clothing will have to be washed, and his body bathed in water, and he will be unclean till evening. But when her flow of blood is stopped, after 7 days she will be clean. And on the 8th day, let her get 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, and take them to the priest to the door of the tent of the meeting, to be offered by the priest, one for a sin offering and one for a burnt offering. And the priest will take away her sin before the Lord on account of her unclean condition. In this way may the children of Israel be made free from all sorts of unclean conditions, so that death may not overtake them when they are unclean, and when they make unclean my holy place which is among them. This is the law for the man who has a flow from his body, or whose seed goes down from him, so that he is unclean. And for her who has a flow of blood, and for any man or woman who has an unclean flow, and for him who has sex relations with a woman when she is unclean. Leviticus chapter 16. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, who were killed when they offered unholy fire to the Lord. He said, "Tell your brother Aaron that only at the proper time is he to go behind the curtain into the most holy place, because that is where I appear in a cloud above the lid on the covenant box. If he disobeys, he will be killed. He may enter the most holy place only after he has brought a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering." Then the Lord gave the following instructions. Before Aaron goes into the most holy place, he must take a bath and put on the priestly garments, the linen robe and shorts, the belt and the turban. The community of Israel shall give Aaron 2 male goats for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall offer a bull as a sacrifice to take away his own sins and those of his family. Then he shall take the 2 goats to the entrance of the tent of the Lord's presence. There he shall draw lots using 2 stones, one marked for the Lord and the other for Azazel. Aaron shall sacrifice the goat chosen by lot for the Lord, and offer it as a sin offering. The goat chosen for Azazel shall be presented alive to the Lord, and sent off into the desert of Azazel, in order to take away the sins of the people. When Aaron sacrifices the bull as a sin offering for himself and his family, he shall take a fire pan full of burning coals from the altar and 2 handfuls of fine incense, and bring them into the most holy place. There in the Lord's presence he shall put the incense on the fire, and the smoke of the incense will hide the lid of the covenant box, so that he will not see it and die. He shall take some of the bull's blood and with his finger sprinkle it on the front of the lid, and then sprinkle some of it 7 times in front of the covenant box. After that he shall kill the goat for the sin offering for the people. Bring its blood into the most holy place, and sprinkle it on the lid, and then in front of the covenant box, as he did with the bull's blood. In this way he will perform the ritual to purify the most holy place from the uncleanness of the people of Israel and from all their sins. He must do this to the tent, because it stands in the middle of the camp, which is ritually unclean. From the time Aaron enters the most holy place to perform the ritual of purification until he comes out, there must be no one in the tent. When he has performed the ritual for himself, his family, and the whole community, he must then go out of the altar for burnt offerings and purify it. He must take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood, and put it over all the projections at the corners of the altar. With his finger he must sprinkle some of the blood on the altar 7 times. In this way he is to purify it from the sins of the people of Israel and make it holy. When Aaron has finished performing the ritual to purify the most holy place, the rest of the tent of the Lord's presence, and the altar, he shall present to the Lord the live goat chosen for Azazel. He shall put both of his hands on the goat's head, and confess over it all the evils, sins, and rebellion of the people of Israel, and so transfer them to the goat's head. Then the goat is to be driven off into the desert by someone appointed to do it. The goat will carry all their sins away with him into some uninhabited land. Then Aaron shall go into the tent, take off the priestly garments that he had put on before entering the most holy place, and leave them there. He must take a bath in a holy place, and put on his own clothes. After that he shall go out and offer the burnt offering to remove his own sins and those of the people. He shall burn on the altar the fat of the animal for the sin offering. The man who drove the goat into the desert of Azazel must wash his clothes and take a bath before he comes back into the camp. The bull and the goat used for the sin offering, whose blood was brought into the most holy place to take away sin, shall be carried outside the camp and burned. Skin, meat, and intestines shall all be burned. The one who burns them must wash his clothes and take a bath before he returns to camp. The following regulations are to be observed for all time to come. On the 10th day of the 7th month, the Israelites and the foreigners living among them must fast and must not do any work. On that day, the ritual is to be performed to purify them from all their sins, so that they will be ritually clean. That day is to be a very holy day, one on which they fast and do no work at all. These regulations are to be observed for all time to come. The high priest, properly ordained and consecrated to succeed his father, is to perform the ritual of purification. He shall put on the priestly garments and perform the ritual to purify the most holy place, the rest of the tent of the Lord's presence, the altar, the priests, and all the people of the community. These regulations are to be observed for all time to come. This ritual must be performed once in a year to purify the people of Israel from all their sins. So Moses did as the Lord had commanded. May the Lord bless us abundantly. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.